You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today's a big show, Cameras of the Year 2016. Our ideas about what cameras are really good, and a lot of feedback from various employees around B&H, and we got a bunch of employees around here. Joining John Harrison and I today are Shawn, Steiner, and Levi Tenenbaum, regulars of the show just about every other 5 or 6 shows. And we're going to talk about everything that's new as far as cameras, things that we like, things that are exciting, and even a few disappointments. Before we move on, though, we really value your thoughts and opinions. Leave a review on iTunes. Then email your questions and thoughts to podcast@bhphoto.com. So anyway, another year's gone by. Seems like it was just a year ago that we did this for 2015. It was about exactly, it was just about a year. A lot of things have changed and some things have not changed. So we're going to start talking about things that are exciting here, and we're going to start the conversation with DSLRs, which seem to be the most popular topic here.
Let's start with the 2 medium format cameras. Because that seemed to
okay.
make the most. We sent out a list or a questionnaire to a lot of employees earlier this year to get their feedback on what they thought were the most important and best cameras of the year. And I think without question, those 2 made it the top.
What all the photo geeks? You're right.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the Hasselblad X1D-50C and the Fujifilm GFX50S. The Hasselblad's pretty impressive. It's not much bigger than a Sony A7 camera or an SL, and it's really good. You've used it, right? You shot with it or no?
Yeah, we had right before the announcement that Hasselblad showed up with a early pre-production unit. So
the H was missing, if I'm not mistaken, on the new.
There's a few things missing.
They whited it out.
But the camera definitely, it feels really good. Like, it definitely gets that Hasselblad name and does it justice.
It's radical, like everything else that they do. It's like they just come out with something new, and it's just nice and fresh.
Well, I just want to point out over here that it's finally not a Sony camera rebranded.
Good point.
Which is phenomenal.
Yes.
And we just had training on actual production units, and it, like Shawn is saying, it feels great. The touchscreen with all their menu system is fantastic. The one thing that any customer who's spending in the realm of $10,000 to $11,000 for a camera, it's only contrast autofocus at this point in time. So, not blaming Hasselblad, I don't think the technology is there yet for them to do phase detection because they're the only ones doing this right now. But
medium format sensors are still they're always going to be
behind.
It's like how full frame is behind APS-C and lower. It's the same thing, but for people shooting with the medium format system, autofocus usually isn't going to be the
You mean just behind the autofocus is what you meant between the APS-C and full frame to mirrorless to medium format.
Yeah, it's one of the few things that trickles up.
Yeah.
So
it's simple. It starts at the consumer level, phones to cameras, and then upward in cameras because medium format sells the least amount, so you have the least amount of money to put into R&D and to really.
And who makes that sensor on the Hasselblad? Do you know?
I believe it's the Sony sensor.
It's a Sony sensor.
Yeah, it's made by Sony, but they're the ones using it.
Yeah,
I think also you're talking about being a little bit slower and stuff. And in general, anybody who shoots at medium format is used to working a little bit slower. You don't have 10 frames per second. You're lucky if you get 2. The focusing, even on the best medium format cameras right now, has always been a little bit sluggish compared to the 35 because it's bigger and larger. It takes more energy and power to move all of this stuff around. So I don't think for somebody who's coming from a medium format or a larger format world, it's going to make that big a difference.
Yeah, totally
and the
agree.
fact that now that it's small and light, you can travel and do more with it, I think that more than makes up for it.
Is that the major draw, that it's smaller and lighter?
it's and price.
Probably.
And price,
exactly.
yeah.
Price is big. I mean, thinking that you buy a brand new Hasselblad 50C,
That's $30,000, $40,000.
is I think $29.99.99,
depending on which version you get. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's already expensive camera. And the form factor now, like, I mean, Alan, you remember shooting? I don't know. Did you shoot, Shawn? Did you shoot medium format film?
I haven't shot much medium format. I have shot 4x5.
Right. So I mean, medium format film, and we all know is like huge cameras.
Yeah. I used to do a Hasselblad and a Pentax 6.7 dinosaurs.
This is a very, I think, size wise, it fits the hand really well, and it's, as Alan pointed out, it's not that much bigger than an A7. Like,
Right.
it's definitely bigger, but it's not like it still feels like good in your hand. Like if you're used to shooting like a full body DSLR, like a D810 or a 5D Mark IV, like this is gonna
It's
feel
very
pretty at home.
close to the Leica SL actually in terms
Which is
of size.
shocking.
Actually,
I always said Leica made too big of a camera there.
It
what
is,
I
but
now
it
what I
isn't.
think it's more comparable to, and it's something I've been asking for a long time. If you go back a couple of years, when medium format film was still big, the Mamiya 6 and the Mamiya 7. Those were large rangefinder medium format cameras,
Yep.
and I'd always look at a Mamiya 7, which is a very successful camera, great camera. And I always, why can't they build a digital camera like this? Boom, that's what they did.
Well, guess what?
It's here, and it's priced really well considering what you're getting. Now, also, let's open up a little bit more because it is a good piece of change. So one person shouldn't have to handle this by themselves. So I think if you can get a few people together,
Exactly.
you put 100 people together, man.
Kickstarter.
It's chunk change.
Challenge
Chunk change.
X1D. Come on.
Okay.
$100 a person. Come on, we could do this.
Yeah, after lunch, actually, I think I'm going to do that.
There we go.
I'm getting it.
The Fujifilm, the GF50S, that's not available yet. I mean, no one's played with that. Or
The
have they?
Hasselblad is not available either. It's going to ship, I think, in December. I think if I saw on our site and per what I was reading today.
They've started like they've gotten a few
I
units
think we
out.
had a few
Yeah,
units
it's trickle.
pass through here already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's trickle.
of the Hasselblad.
Of the Hasselblad,
But what
yeah.
about the Fujifilm? Let's jump up.
So now the Fuji. So
We've
the
had some
Fuji,
rumors pass
not
through.
available. Firstly, can we talk about the
shutter.
fact that the size is so drastically different? I don't know what is going on with the Fuji camera. It looks twice the size of the Hasselblad in thickness.
It does seem thicker, but I think it's following along the same lines as the X series, where they have like slightly bigger cameras, but they emphasize ergonomics too.
Could be, but it's like people can't see me, but it's literally twice the thickness. And judging how comfortable the Hasselblad was and how slim, like that's not surprising. It's not around the grip that the thickness is. It's around the sensor and the LCD screen where all the thickness is. So that's kind of what I'm a little confused about.
We don't have enough details, so we don't know what might justify that.
If anyone from Fuji is listening, send me an email. I want to know answers. Also, something else that they did over here is that they are doing the really interesting viewfinder, where it's an adjustable viewfinder.
Right. Yeah,
and you can kind of take
Also
it on and
removable.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
removable,
it'll be
right.
interesting to see what else they use that for.
Right.
Exactly. And it moves like all around. I think you can like turn it like 180 degrees. I mean, you can do a bunch of stuff with it.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the big thing is the fact that it's not a leaf shutter, right?
Right,
It's,
that's a big thing.
and
Right.
that's going to be a problem for medium format shooters, isn't that one of the major
It
draws?
depends what you're doing.
Well,
you know?
medium formats always had SLR, like single lens reflex, and you had shutters as well, standard shutters. But leaf shutter, which Hasselblad, that's a good point, is the Hasselblad all has leaf shutter.
Which means you could sync it every single shutter speed with flash and whatever. It's a studio camera. You could use it well.
Yeah, and like the interesting thing, just going back to the Hasselblad, I know we're talking about a lot, just we have a lot more specs on the Hasselblad. It's Nikon TTL, which I think was a really smart move from them
It
because
doesn't get better.
they just said, okay, let's find the best company for flash, and we all know that Nikon's probably the best company in TTL for speedlights.
Yeah.
So-
It is.
It means you can also use any of the third-party, like the Profoto B1s and D2s.
Exactly.
You could
That's
pick
right.
up
Anything
a
that's
remote.
compatible
Yeah.
with Nikon. Yeah, well, that's right.
So are you guys going to put that at the top of your list then? I mean, does that make it the most, not say the best, but the most exciting camera
Oh,
for the year for you?
Hanukkah.
They could borrow mine, I told them.
Okay. Now let's jump to DSLRs then. Any other medium format to talk about?
Well, we have Hasselblad released their new DSLRs too,
Right.
which we can't forget because they did bring out the 100 megapixel back finally after phase one. But it's way more affordable than the phase 1 too. So it's definitely worth a mention here.
And the H6 body, the phase 1 brought out the new XF body. There's a lot of interesting stuff I think that people are trying to do in this kind of arena. What I'm curious about is Pentax hasn't done anything new in like 2 years now.
Right.
So I'm curious to see, like if they're going to follow like the K1 and bring it out like in 4 years from now, like a 50, like it's like, okay, Pentax is a great camera, but like 4 years too late. But
Well, let's jump to DSLR and talk about that K1 then, because it's almost a year now that it's been out, but it was in 2016 they announced it. It's available. People waited for it forever. I like it. I mean, I like the Pentax.
It's a nice
right?
camera.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
it's just Pentax.
yeah.
It's just- you
it's
gotta
nothing
be-
special today.
There's a couple interesting things. So the back is nice. The twisting LCD is really interesting. And image quality from it is actually phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like
Pentax has
really,
always been
really
great for
nice.
imaging. Yeah.
The problem is Shawn was saying like, okay, it's nothing that we haven't seen yet. Yeah, it's got higher IQ, but like, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Pentax just get no respect, right? I mean,
It's a nice camera if
it's a
you're a
great
Pentax
camera,
shooter.
but if you're a Pentax, exactly.
Well,
They make great cameras. The whole problem is that by the time they come out with their announcements, they're already sweeping up the convention center because the show's over.
Exactly. Well, that's what Zevi said on when
Yeah.
we were discussing that. It's like 2 years too late.
Yeah.
It is priced well, though.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
looking at your first system and the weatherproofing, weather
Built like a
resistant,
freaking tank.
That's what I like about it.
So if you're looking at your first camera and maybe you're like that outdoorsy camping all around, you're looking at like a D810 maybe, but you're like Pentax is cheaper.
Right.
Combat photographers, I think, really dig the Pentax.
Yeah.
A lot of videos I've seen from combat photography, Iraq, Afghanistan, have been from the K1 or like that type of series.
So you're so wrapped up in branding. If you were to strip the names off all of these cameras and you just look at what they are and what they do, it would be a whole different set of parameters.
The issue
we'd
is
be playing.
lenses, though.
And
Yeah.
lenses
Yeah.
too. True.
And
Yep.
flash, as we just talked
And
about.
flash.
Yeah. Good points.
So
then from the DSLRs, the new ones, what makes it the top of your list?
it's a good question. I think-
D500.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think easy choice, partially because it just came out of nowhere. Like we were surprised by it here, and everybody loved it. If there was one problem, if you want to call it that, it's the crop in 4K. But as a stills camera, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. XQD is an interesting choice, and if you want to get top speeds out of the D5 or the D500, get XQD. Just do it. Bite the bullet and do it.
Talking about the cards.
Yeah, sorry. Those are the cards that they're using. They're using the Sony cards. Canon is going C fast. So yeah, it's interesting to see that they're both kind of going different directions.
Well, it seems like it's been a while, but both Nikon and Canon brought their new flagships out this year.
Yep.
And they both were well received.
Yeah.
Maybe the D500 outshadowed the D5 a little bit, but
A little bit.
not for those that want it.
Also,
I mean,
it's more people are going to get a D500
exactly.
than a D5.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually we spoke about this, Shawn and I, the D5 and the 1DX Mark II.
Didn't we do a whole podcast?
We
We
did.
did. So go back and listen to our other podcast.
We'll link it.
And the jury's still out.
and no, but like I sold a 1DX Mark II to one of my loyal customers who comes all the time, always wants the latest 1D. And I was saying, between your 1DX and your 1DX Mark II, here are your differences. And like one of the really interesting things that I found was interesting to him was the fact that touchscreen is like, it's a big deal for him. He really appreciated that. So
Yeah, the touchscreen edition was received really well.
yeah, and especially how they implemented it because you could change where you're focusing from the touchscreen. So it's smart.
I know I've gotten to a point now where I know if I hit the screen and nothing happens, I get very upset and have to remind myself it's not a touch screen. Something gets spoiled. I used to not like them, and now I do. It's
It's funny how that works.
So, just for the sake of listing, what about who are you going to put on the top of the list for the DSLRs at this point? Give me your top three from the past year. And I know we got to stretch back because we did talk about this already, but
D500, 5D Mark IV just because, and I think K1.
I would do the same,
Yeah, no,
except
we didn't
replace
mention
the
the 5D.
K1 with the A99 too.
Right.
If you call it a DSLR,
But that's not
or
out
classify
yet.
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's well, it might be shipping next month, or this month. But
Well,
Yeah,
that's
but it was
something-
announced, and we know what to expect from them at this point. Reviews are starting to come in too. So
yeah.
fair enough.
positive.
Yeah.
We've gotten some responses of why we're not giving enough love to the A99 too, because it's a great camera. So I'm glad that you guys mentioned it. But
Yeah, no, I
On
think
one
it's a
hand,
good call. It's just
Yeah.
I can't in good faith encourage someone to go in the A99 realm because there's not enough ecosystem there. Right. Whereas in the lower ecosystem, there's a ton going on. There's a bunch of movement. They're doing a lot. And if you're going to go A99 area and then you look at ecosystems, well, Canon and Nikon have better offerings.
and you have to think going forward, they're going to be putting the emphasis on the E-mount,
Yeah.
and who knows what's going to come up.
They-
So you maybe
they haven't made a strong enough focus on. We are definitely doing A mount still, and so it's kind of like years later they do this. It's really nice, really good camera. If you shoot A mount, it's a spectacular option, but.
But what about consumer level DSLRs? The Rebel T6 is doing well. The
Rebel
80D.
T6.
I mean, I know that's not often what we talk about here, but the D5600 was just announced. Anything?
Well, yeah.
The
5600.
ADD is a nice camera.
The which one?
ADD is a nice camera. It's just the problem with it is it fills a great position for people moving up from the Rebels. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking seriously, you're going to go 70 or higher.
Right.
Right. I was just going to say 70 Mark II would be my choice. Even for someone else, I would push them, to spend just a little bit more because they're going to get more camera.
Right.
For the price.
And have these consumer level DSLRs brought video with them? Are they shooting 4K now? And or not so much?
Not so much.
Nope.
Yeah, okay.
Nope.
Are they going to go the way of the point and shoot, which we'll talk about later? These kind of low end DSLRs.
I don't know. So what? If we can go down a rabbit hole for a second, point and shoot's going to go away because phones are going to get better. But at a certain point, you want interchangeable lenses, but you're not sure how far into interchangeable lenses you want to go. So entry level, I think DSLR will always have a place because that's kind of where you get started.
And then
agree.
high-end
lenses.
point and shoot, the same thing. A premium point and shoots will be around.
Yeah.
For people who like the size of a phone but want a little bit more camera.
Dedicated camera.
Yeah.
You know, a little more optional control, zoom, whatever you want to, whatever they might be offering. So that's probably what it is. But yeah, entry-level DSLR. For a lot of people, especially consumers and enthusiasts, they don't feel that they have a real camera, quote unquote, real camera, until they have a DSLR.
Yeah, all the time.
DSLR is sort of a standard and a certain mark, a milestone in cameras that when you have one, I think it gives a lot of people a whole different feel about them when they walk around taking pictures. They have suddenly a professional camera, real camera.
I think the real question comes down to, are DSLRs going to go away as soon as mirrorless can actually outperform them completely? I think that's the real question.
That's my gut feeling is yes. I mean, I find it hard to justify a DSLR for a lot of the stuff that I do. I can't justify the weight and size to have to carry this around. I can get a lot done with.
I don't think
small
it'll ever
ones.
go away because like people still shoot.
Oh,
film,
yeah.
so it's gonna hang out for a while. I think
The choices will be fewer.
Yeah, the mid range, I think, is probably going to go away for what we were just talking about with the ADD, like
ADD.
ADD.
Yeah, where it's like you have a choice between either going to go like more basic, lower end, cheaper, or you're going to get a high end camera.
Yeah.
And we see it now with Nikon with the D500, the D7200 kind of doesn't have a
Second
home
seat.
anymore.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's also, those cameras are placed way too close to each other. Like, you might as well get the D500.
Hopefully that's going to stop. I mean, I think it's already happening. That used to be, especially Sony used to put out like 80 different models every 6 months.
We sell
they still do.
5 RX100s.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, it was
And
mentioned
6A7.
briefly the 5D Mark IV, which you would have thought it would have made a huge splash, given how important the Mark II and the Mark III were, and people have been waiting for this camera for a while.
Yeah, it knocked down a lot of walls early on.
But has
yeah.
it gotten the attention that it might deserve, or what do
The
you think?
5D had a huge problem in that the earlier models were super video heavy.
Right.
And now I think they're doing the right thing in that they're going back to the still-centric route. But in terms of video, it got slammed because of the crop mainly. But, I mean, the video looks really good from what I've seen. And it's a really great stills camera, but it got overshadowed by the video hype.
And is partly because so many other cameras now include video and can do that just as well. Yeah.
That and Canon also has an existing interest in cinema and to move you up to cinema. So we even saw it on the 1DX Mark II, where it's not a 1DC replacement. It's just like a 1DX with some 4K added in.
The omission of like log and like serious output via HDMI, like you only do HD over HDMI, which is like a weird limitation for a camera of that caliber.
Yeah, you don't get the 4K. But what I do want to point out, and this kind of comes back to one of the classic debates, D810 versus 5D Mark IV, is that the 5D Mark IV is a phenomenal, like Shawn was saying, it's a phenomenal stills camera. Not only that, it's a great all-around camera. I think even more so than a D810 in its simplicity. The camera works. It's very straightforward. It's not as heavy, and I don't mean just weight-wise. It's not as heavy file-wise. You have a 6-megapixel difference, which isn't amazingly big, but Canon does a great job in compressing their raw files in a way where you get nice size to what you're doing.
Lossless.
Exactly, lossless. And don't get me wrong, if you want to compare image quality, the D810 is going to win. But as an all-around just good shooting camera for like your wedding event photographers and stuff like that, the 5D Mark IV is a fantastic fit.
There's also great reports on the 5D Mark IV coming out where the dynamic range has finally gotten a
in there.
major upgrade, which was always the complaint with Canon cameras, even though if you shot with them, you didn't really complain that much.
You mentioned the D810. Is there something on the horizon for their
Shrug?
No idea.
Shrug? Okay.
Well, can we talk about Nikon and what they've been doing this year? Because they've been like all over the place. So Nikon has a bunch of slowdowns due to the earthquake. So it's something that we keep forgetting to mention. There was a huge earthquake in Japan earlier this year, which kind of pushed off everyone's production. So last Last year, this time, Nikon announced the DL series, which was supposed to come out in the summer, got pushed off to come out beginning of fall, then to December. And now
Well,
it's
DL stands for delay.
Yeah, well, exactly. Or down low. That stuff's not going to be coming out until next year, maybe quarter one, maybe quarter two. I don't know when. And then they also released, and this is a total segue, so if we're okay doing it, 360 cameras in the key mission.
Let's hold off.
We're going to hold off on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
We're going to let you
We
explode on
definitely-
that separately.
Yeah.
Okay. We're actually
Get
going to
angry over the break. Okay.
Bring the rage.
We're going to take a short break, and we come back. We're going to talk about mirrorless cameras and everything else that's bothering Levi.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
We are back. The past few episodes, we put out a little request to our listeners in anticipation of this show that if anybody had a camera that they were excited about for 2016, let us know. We actually got some feedback. A Mr. Richard Fader of Fort Lee, New Jersey. He said that the new Hasselblad is his favorite, talking about the Hasselblad X1D-50C. The only reservation he has is that he said he'll buy it, but only if it'll accept his Bronica lenses, and I'm not quite sure if there'll be an adapter for that. Okay, so hang in there, Mr. Richard Fader. We'll find out if you can do that or not. Otherwise, we have William from Scotland mentioned that he'd been waiting for a D500, an update to the D300S, and could not be more pleased with its autofocus speed. Sophie from right here in New York City, a town so nice they named it twice. She's a bird photographer. She's also excited to have a D500 and is looking to up her game with this and a 300mm f4E combination. Ryan from Las Vegas mentioned the Fujifilm X Pro 2 and is pleased with the upgrade, particularly the hybrid viewfinder. And the Pentax K1 also garnered a few comments, most speaking about how satisfied they were after the long wait for a full-frame Pentax. They finally got it. And regarding the Sony A6300, Ali says, love this camera, super easy to use, intuitive, streamlined body, and small enough to lug around for shoots at work when I'm traveling all day. Takes fantastic low-light shots. So there you have it, and thank all of you for sending us your feedback.
That's a good segue into the mirrorless section, too, because the A6300 got a lot of great attention earlier in the year. There was no A6400, and now they've announced an A6500 within the same year.
Yeah, months.
And the 65, yeah.
I mean, what's with that? What's up with that?
And so we're going to talk about the A6400 and what it should have been.
Yeah.
What do you think it should? Anyway, 6500.
I think it should have been the 6500.
Now that camera is really, really nice, and I've handled it, and it really is a special camera. The picture quality is great out of that, and you look at it and you just have to start questioning: do I really need full frame? I mean, I could justify it for myself, but it makes you think twice.
I would put the A6500 at the top of any photo enthusiasts or even pros list. I mean, they have finally, I think, fixed a lot of the things that plagued them with autofocus and viewfinder blockout, and we wrote an internal review, which is pretty much Sony finally like, what else do you want from this?
On the 6500.
Yeah, on the 6500. Like, what else can you want? Like, if it hits all the specs that they've announced, I mean, and the initial reviews are coming in, say it's really, really solid. So, hey.
And based on the performance of the 6300, there's no reason to doubt that this won't be all that. Right?
Exactly. And it fixes up some of the issues that the 6300 had.
Right.
So,
Great.
yeah.
And, well, a couple camera manufacturers had their first mirrorless come out this year. I know, Levi, you're dying to talk about the Sigma.
Oh, yes. Can't wait.
But anything interesting on these Sigmas? I mean, everyone likes the Foveon, and they love or hate the Foveon sensor, I guess. But so the SD Quattro and the SD Quattro H, which is not yet available. But any
It's interesting.
yeah.
I'm just waiting to
Or
see
I'll
them.
leave it.
Yeah, leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see them. I've shot with the DPs, like, you know, they're...
Me too.
I don't even know what to say. Like,
I like them.
It's interesting. I happen to like them. I used an earlier version of it, and I got some really wonderful pictures, has some great qualities. Couldn't reproduce red. Try photographing a stop sign with it, and it can't do that
right,
red.
we were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, and that's an issue. And another problem I had with it, which is a problem if you want to work fast, but I could shoot 4x5 sheet film faster than raw files on that thing. That thing is just slow.
So I also thought it had beautiful colors. I don't know that I believe them in the resolution being equivalent to like a twice the size Bayer array.
Yeah.
Certain things there. It's an interesting sensor technology, and they've stuck with it for years, even though it's not. It still hasn't been putting out what we needed to in low light.
It has its attributes to it. No two ways about it. It has a certain look and feel about it that is kind of neat. I did like certain things about it, but would I invest all of my photo energies into that through it? No, I don't think so. Not
I think
yet.
the major mistake, if I want to call it that, I don't know if I do, but they use their proprietary mount,
Yes.
but
yes.
it's from their DSLRs.
Right.
So it limits you to just using Sigma mount glass.
And I think they will do mount changes. Like if you have like their art lenses, they'll switch over the mount for you. But it's just like, just bring people into the fold. You just need them to use your camera, not your mount.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Good
I
point.
do.
So Fujifilm they updated their two best
Pro.
Pro.
bodies,
We're
yeah.
going to call them the Pro. The X Pro 2 and the XT2 are now out. And I guess they haven't gotten a lot of attention, but is that because they're just good, solid?
No, the X Pro 2 is a real step up.
Okay.
And it's a very nice camera. A friend of mine just got one. He can't stop raving about it. Great colors. I mean, everyone always talks about Fuji colors.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Justin?
It's a
We miss
signature. It's a signature. You could tell it.
If you're using their film emulation modes, it's fantastic.
Yeah. The XT2 too, really good. They brought out 4K, which looks really good. We had some hands-on time here with it, and it's fast. It was surprisingly fast, and the autofocus was really good.
So if you're going to choose between one or the other, if you're new to Fujifilm, which one would you buy? Let's say you're
Depends on what
An enthusiast.
you want to do.
Yeah,
That's
as
kind of my
always.
thing. I personally, because I shoot like so much of the other cameras in the SLR format, I'm a big fan of the X Pro 2 just because it's different. It's a different experience when you're shooting rangefinder and you flick on the rangefinder and you're just like, hey, like this is new.
Right.
I think it comes down to two things. Video. If you want good video, you're going to have to go XT2 because the X Pro only does HD. And then the viewfinder. So if you want the rangefinder, X Pro 2. And it looks great too.
And
Exactly.
What about the XA3, which I know it's an entry-level mirrorless, but you can still use the same lenses, and it also comes up as a very popular camera this year. Any
There's also
thoughts?
the XA10,
Right.
which was just announced, right?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah,
saying
no,
something.
you're okay. Didn't blow anything here.
Okay.
And by
Yeah.
the time this comes out, it will be official. No, but they did announce it.
We can cut it if not.
So they basically just reformulated their entry level to make it more accessible and less confusing to
Okay.
beginners, which is a good move.
Olympus.
Yeah, so Shawn was just talking about fast autofocus and fast camera. The Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II,
Right.
just to confuse everyone.
Right.
Phenomenal camera in the first version. I mean, blazing fast, autofocus, great in-body stabilization. And the Mark II it's just the better version.
Right.
It's really nice.
Yet, have
Also
you had it in your
4K.
hands? Have we had it in our hands yet? I mean, I haven't.
Have
of
not
course,
had it
but
in my hands.
no,
It came
okay.
around and
I did.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I shot with it.
The Mark
And-
II?
The Mark II. I had one, yeah.
Okay.
It was, and the 25 to 100 zoom, I think it was.
Oh yeah, it's the constant f4. Is it
Yeah,
12
yeah,
to,
yeah,
12
yeah.
to 100 maybe?
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry, yes. So I had that for about a week, and it was brilliant to use. My only comment on it, my only thought about it is that it's an amazing camera, built beautifully, fast. Picture quality is awesome on it. All the controls are terrific. Does that multi-shot, so you could, a lot you can do with that camera. And I'm looking and I'm saying to myself, it's micro 4/3 and it's the size of an A7S or A7R.
Well, they
whatever.
big?
built it big purposely.
Well, yeah, actually, it's good that, but that's one of the things that gets me about what's happening with cameras right now. It's almost irrelevant. The sensor size has no effect on the
Body
camera
size. Exactly. So I think I've shot a lot of like OMD EM5, and with the EM5, you must, like for my hand at least, I must put the grip on. With the EM1, they built it to be like
It's
you're able to
beefier.
hold it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny how this is kind of the swing back that we're still seeing over the couple of years, where everybody wanted mirrorless to be small, but the better they got, the people wanted them to be a little bit bigger. You know?
Yeah. So my biggest beef with mirrorless, I think I mentioned it on the podcast before, is the lenses. is that so far you get a 2.8 lens, which is the size of a standard lens. You didn't really save that much space and weight. So I want to see better lenses, maybe not a constant 2.8. Give me an f4, but it should be amazing across the board and smaller lens.
So just looking at some of the specs for the OMD EM1 Mark II, say it fast, DCI and UHD 4K, dual fast autofocus, the 5-axis image stabilization, which can give you up to the equivalent of 5.5 stops. So that's where we're getting at.
I've seen tests with that thing handheld, and it looks almost like it's on a stabilizer.
Right.
Yeah.
It is.
And if you use that new lens, you gain it's up to 6.5 stops,
Right,
which
'cause it
according
has-
to Olympus is that's as good as it's going to get, which
Yeah.
is interesting.
So the DMC, the GH5, has not been seen of or heard of.
Limited
but we know
information.
Limited, but it is on its way.
But that looks like it's gonna be awesome.
Right.
And if they're, what was the quote that you guys had in the article? It's a camcorder disguised as
Your quote.
Oh, that's my quote. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Such modesty.
I forgot that that's my. I forgot
This
that I
really
said that, but
smart
that's
guy who
it.
said something once.
He's twisting his arm back to take it off his own shoulder right now.
But that's essentially what it is. I mean, that is literally what it is, and it's.
Is
if
that
it's
good though?
I
Do we
don't
want a
care.
camcorder?
I don't
Question.
care. I don't care. They're
like,
doing it.
Still camera body. You can get great
Point is the video is
camcorders
great,
for like
right?
just for the same price now too.
My take is that ultimately
Good
that's
point.
where we're going to be. There's going to be one device that's going to shoot both, and it's not going to be a delineation. You're not going to be buying a camera for video or for stills. It's going to be a video camera that you could pull very high resolution stills at. That's where we're going. I mean, just look at the direction.
Ever since Red came to the game, it's kind of been a huge shift because once Red showed up with raw video
Right.
and made it relatively affordable, then it became a thing.
Now it's
Fashion
not.
magazines and fashion covers were shot with it then, and that was a huge deal. And it is the direction because the GH5 is actually going to have a 6K photo mode.
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you anything,
Right.
so they're moving in that direction.
Well, you can actually count on probably one hand how many cameras we sell that don't do video.
I mean, even like his latest M shoots video.
Yeah,
so it's like,
yeah.
Well,
they
not
make
the
a
latest,
they
but
make a
made the new
statement
ones.
with, "Oh, this one
Yeah.
doesn't because it's professional."
And the SL shoots video and great video.
And how about the GX85, which is stepping down a bit,
nice.
a little bit, but it's gotten a lot of great.
Yeah, it's a nice little camera. It comes to take over. What was it, the GX80 or whatever it is, and it's we had a training on it beginning of October, and it's
It's a very nice little camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rangefinder style, so
Right.
you get both options from Panasonic, which also brings us back to Olympus's Pen F, which
Yes.
was released early this year.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a
those
good
are
one.
cute cameras.
Didn't get a lot of attention, but at the time it did. But from our write-ups, it didn't. So, but
Well,
a
we
great
had
camera.
we had a hands-on, and it did really well, but it's just like it's a unique camera.
Okay.
It's a Pen F
Right.
remake, so
Right.
it's like if you like that kind of body and style, you're gonna get it. But if you're more on the EM series, then not really.
The Pen
gonna
F
bring
is a
it over.
lifestyle
that-
camera. It's an accessory, okay?
Exactly.
Whereas the other one is, I'm a photographer.
yeah, once you go in lifestyle, there are other options.
Yes.
in lifestyle, like
Yes.
Fuji.
Just get the Leica.
Yeah, that's actually true.
I liked it. Yeah, exactly. What about the M5? So people kept saying that Canon has finally gotten mirrorless right, but is anyone buying it? What's going on?
I would love to spend some time with this camera because the press has been good so far. It seems like they got autofocus fixed, which personally was my only real complaint with the system.
Right.
I had an M
Remember
a
we
while
had those?
back.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little camera. Like I still like sometimes throw it in a bag if I'm going on like home or visiting people
Yeah.
because it's a tiny camera that everybody can use. But the focusing is just
Right.
Horrendous.
Have you handled? Has anybody here
horrible.
handled the 5 at all?
We're
Right,
talking about
the
3
old one.
generations ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes,
But they've gotten better and better. But this is the first one, which is actually like a real camera, also. So like they've kind of seen that the trend is to make a real mirrorless camera instead of like a mirrorless point and shoot. And so this is kind of like a real camera. I think the biggest complaint that I would have on this camera, without having handled it yet, is that the screen flips down. I don't like that. So
well, it can't flip up really. Well, it could flip to the
out
side.
to the side, and that's what I would want it
I like
to be.
when the LCDs to the side it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, when you can to the side,
Or you could
and
do for
swivel
yourself
it,
for webcasters or anyone who's doing something like
Yeah,
that. They can.
Street shooting,
You've
I mean-
just nullified that camera for anyone who would do vlogs or anything like that because they can't see themselves.
Right.
Okay. And Nikon mirrorless, is it?
What?
Exactly. Okay. So what about, this is something we talked about briefly earlier, but a lot of these smaller mirrorless and point and shoots, and we're going to get to point and shoot in a second, that we were writing about at this time last year, they're just gone.
History.
They didn't bring out their follow-up.
I think it's hard to get market share. So it's makers like Pentax and I don't even know, Samsung, I guess, even though they're not really doing anything now otherwise.
Fuji. You got to focus. No, but I mean, you got to focus on what you do and what you do well. You can't sit there putting out 50 products. You have to put out good classic products that will retain your core audience and be interesting to someone who already has something else.
Or it'd be Sony and just release
Besides-
everything.
I mean,
You
it's
know,
going to be
there's
Sony
a problem when their slogan is, what the hell?
So let's then jump to point and shoots, which obviously will be a very short little segment because I think 2 or 3 point and shoots were released this year.
Yeah, you got a couple new tough cameras. RX100 Mark V.
Right. Let's talk about the high ends because that's kind of what is available in the point and shoot realm right now.
Like
That's worth it.
XU came out this
The
year.
Leica
Like
XU.
XU.
Has
which
anybody
is a tough
handled that thing?
camera.
I mean, I'm amazed by that. A waterproof point and shoot. I want to try it.
APS-C.
Yeah.
APS-C. Yep.
The specs on it are great, and I'm sure it's a terrific camera.
Yeah, it would-
It's
I would
the
love
right
that camera.
direction,
I would love to have
just-
that camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
For travel, for hiking, for like a lot of, if you're going to like rough, crazy places, it's a great camera to have.
Yeah.
But it's
Throw
a
it in your
fixed
bag.
focal length, right? It's just
Yes.
like 35 equivalent or something.
Uh-huh.
All right. And yeah, the tough cameras are, I mean, this is where I'll pat myself on the back because they're the ones that are now kind of getting the attention because they're not going to break like everything else.
Exactly.
That's
And,
why I push them all the time. People with small kids, no, you don't want a little cheap camera. You want something the kid can throw against the wall when he or
Or
she
throw
has a
up on.
fit. Exactly, yes.
And wash right off.
Exactly. No.
Underneath the hose. But on the flip side, then you have the high ends, and it seems like the two Sonys are getting the most attention. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
The
Although I
RX100,
do.
RX10, right?
Yeah, RX100,
RX1.
RX10, and then I do want to point out that Canon brought out a bunch finally in this range, which
that's
are
right.
also really nice.
Okay.
Like the
Yeah, G7X Mark II was this year.
And in the kind of classic compact point and shoot that we used to know so well, I know that the X70, the Fujifilm X70, got
Very
some
nice
attention.
camera.
Anything else?
In classic point and shoot,
Yeah.
iPhone 7. Google Pixel. Yeah. So yeah, iPhone 7, 7 Plus.
7 Plus, right?
Which are very nice 7 Plus with the 2 lenses, which is something that we're seeing a lot of phone manufacturers working with, especially to get that like kind of optical zoom, because people do realize that there's a difference between optical zoom and digital zoom. And then the one really interesting one, which I found to be really fascinating, is that Google released their Pixel, and then there's the Pixel XL, which is the better version, which they went out and got DxOMark, which is a company which does a lot of sensor testing and lens testing, and they scored like an 89, which is higher than the 5D3 scored.
And that's for the lenses or for
And
the
that's
whole?
for the
It's the
sensor.
same
That's for,
quality?
it's for the
So
camera.
it's not really on the same scale as a DSLR because that's just a sensor measurement. But an 89 sounds really good to me.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, what? And my friend has it, and so I was playing around with it a little bit. That camera is fantastic. It is a fantastic camera. I think Google really knocked it out of the park. And then when we saw, I mean, this is going to become like a tech podcast in a second, but then when we saw what happened with Samsung, and then iPhone 7 users aren't as stoked, I think there's a lot of users who are interested in something new. So a lot of users went over to the Pixel as well.
How is it at making phone calls?
I have no idea. Does it matter?
Has anybody used it for making a call, or they're just taking pictures with it?
Actually, as a phone itself, it's on Android Nugget, and people are saying that it's actually a really good phone. People like
Okay.
it.
Well, we did a little thing on the iPhone 7, and the Plus got a lot of raves. Of course, it had just come out, so of course
Yeah.
it's going to get its raves. Has anyone been using it? Do you guys know?
The Plus?
I have
or-
friends who
Yeah,
have
the
it.
Plus with the 2 lenses and
Yeah, my son-in-law has one. He loves it, and he's been a nut for he keeps thinking every phone that they come out is the best one. This one he's really raving
Yeah,
about.
him
he's
and my
drinking the
brother-in-law
Kool-Aid,
can
that
get.
guy.
Yeah, I personally don't want to do it because it's too big.
I got the 7 because the
Right.
Plus is just too big.
too big. Yeah, interesting. We're talking about phones that are too big.
Yeah.
for the mirrorless. So, but the RX100 and RX10, which we just touched on briefly, is there anything else to say about them? I mean, they've been just updating them every year. And
no,
they're
the RX10 Mark III.
Right.
which is the interesting one because
Tell
there's
me why.
RX10 Mark II, which is the
24 to 200.
24 to 200, and then the Mark III is 24 to 600.
600.
And
it's
that's interesting.
They're both variable aperture, I believe.
Yes.
Figure a Canon 600mm f4 is $11,000. So
Now, I shot with that camera, and I used it, and I was happy with the picture quality. I like the performance of the camera, but it's big. It's a big thing to carry around. I mean, it does a lot.
yeah,
You know,
and,
but
and video quality wise, I think they're great cameras.
Yeah, I have an RX 100 Mark IV, same sensor and everything. Video on that, spectacular. Photos too, but just we're on that topic.
Yeah,
So.
I think overall, if people want to know what the trend going forward seems to be, is that high end 1-inch sensor or more is kind of where point and shoot is now because they can't compete with phones in the low end. You carry a phone with you wherever you go. There's fantastic apps.
And the long zooms too, right? I mean, isn't that a thing that's
Right, and
sticking around a
then
bit?
long zoom, which is something that can still compete even at the high end because you can get an all-in-one zoom, like we're just saying now from the RX 100 Mark III.
What I think is also interesting about a lot of these is that you can have a camera and it'll go from like 25 to 700, 800 millimeter equivalent focal length that'll fit in your pocket.
Yeah.
Which I think is just, that's amazing.
Yeah, you have some really big super zooms, and then like Nikon. I mean, it was last year, but like with the,
The
P900,
P900, it goes to about 2,000
yeah,
millimeter.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It's insane.
So let's jump ahead to kind of the oddball cameras or something's. Well, let's talk VR, 360.
So fort.
So forth. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's
Those are going to be selling really
instant-
well. I mean,
instant
they
They're all
cameras
got
are
back
popular.
ordered.
I mean-
They're all back ordered. I'm a huge fan.
Wow,
Instant
And
cameras
they're-
had an interesting revival this year.
absolutely.
Impossible had their camera,
Yep.
the i1, which
Yep.
is an
The
it's
pyramid.
It has a
the rotary
the
phone.
rotary phone.
I call it a rotary phone. That's what
exactly.
it's like. Just, it's missing the handset.
It's a nice little camera, but I feel like it's almost too much for an instant
For an
camera.
instant camera.
I think
Yeah.
the Fuji Instax really hit the nail on the head with relatively inexpensive, just have fun. Here's a camera, go shoot. And
Exactly.
I just think it's amazing that people cannot buy enough of these things with the understanding that every time you push that button, man, it's like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. It's
Yep.
the opposite of digital.
And
But it
they're
doesn't
small.
matter.
And they're small. They're not even like big ka-ching ka-ching.
Exactly.
It's like a little like
Credit card size.
The Instax are
Uh-huh.
like-
But that's why the Instax is. I mean, I guess the question is, it's for fun. We know that, or at least I feel that they are
Yeah.
for fun.
It's
and they
a
have their
party
place.
camera.
Yeah.
So then you have Impossible and now Leica coming out, who want to make it for the artist or for people
It's
that want to
a
spend more
fashion
money.
statement. It's an
That's the stretch.
accessory.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a stretch.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
And by the way, they do sell a lot of cameras based on that. The color. A few years ago, Pentax came out with some option where,
KS2, I think.
yeah,
Well, the Q series, all those
Yeah,
the Q series mirrorless
There
were
was
all
like 27 or 30 different
I think
colors.
more combinations.
yeah. And by the way, interesting. One of the first ones they did was they came out one of their little DSLRs that was all white. Mm-hmm. This thing, and they said, "Wow, hey, guess what? We're selling fashion accessories," and that's exactly what it is, and that's what the Leica is too. It's something very cool and stylish to go along when you're out on a dinner or a party or whatever, and that's
So
what they're
forward.
marketing on.
gallery open
SOF.
so fort.
What the hell is that?
Instant in German.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Sean's done his research.
All right.
But I'm actually a big fan of these. Everyone, they are completely Leica priced, so that's your warning.
They
but
look nice.
I
They're
think
$300,
they're
right?
so cute. I mean, I totally
So
get
is
it.
the Impossible.
Yeah.
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 You know,
Yeah.
we sell a Polaroid camera in the store, which is like I think refurb Polaroid for like $250. Like the
Yeah,
classic, like
a lot of
the
the like
square print
through
one.
the
Impossible.
classic ones. Yeah, the refurbs through Impossible are like 400 or 500, 600. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
What about the MD, the Leica? We were talking about Leica. You love that?
I love the Leica MD. I mean, you think about it. They're charging how much money for a camera that doesn't have an LCD on it? I love it. No, seriously.
Do you find yourself pushing? Do you find yourself pushing the back, being like, "Where's the touchscreen?"
Yes. I would not be able to, if I could afford it, I couldn't justify it, but I absolutely love the concept of having no screen on the back of that camera because it makes it really like going out and shooting film. And that's one of the beauties. Yeah, you could put a cover on your LCD, you could turn it off, you could ignore it, you could do whatever you want. Everybody's going to ultimately be sneaking peeks because we're human. I just love the fact that here's a camera where you go out and take pictures and you're not going to know what you did until you come home. And the advantage of that is that it forces you to slow down to think about what you're doing. Whereas if you can keep chimping and looking at everything else, it's like you lose something. And I think there's the purity of it. I just absolutely love.
And we all know what Alan's background is now. I hear what you're saying.
Don't tell anybody, please.
I think the one thing that might have been interesting, I was thinking about it while you were saying this, is that if they had added like a Bluetooth option so that you could see your images like on your way home or something, might be interesting. But I could see where it gets in the way of the purist type of
you
photography.
think about it. And there's just something wonderful about going out and not knowing if you got, and there's something really rewarding about when you do get home or you get the film back, whatever, and you say, wow, I did it. It came out.
This is like a street photographer's dream.
I guess so.
Well, there's also the slightly less expensive version with the screen.
With a piece of tape, I thought you were going to say, right?
Yes, yes.
Tape over.
But by the way, I am starting another Kickstarter thing. Okay, it's going to be a little adhesive patch that goes in the back of any camera
Called gaffer's tape.
It's going to be perforated rolls.
So VR's been huge this year. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are looking into it. There's some people who are ahead of the game. Others are just getting into the game. And not just VR, but 360, spherical imaging. Is it going to be around?
So I think there's a really interesting place for this, and I think that it's going to be around for a long time. There's a lot of advantages to it, from gaming to experiential stuff to just a lot of different realms. Before I go into ranting, I just want to say the biggest challenge right now in 360 is the cameras are for sure ahead of the software. The software's catching up, and then where we're really behind is in delivery. We don't yet really know how to do a group experience on VR.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't figured that out. And wearing headsets, for all those of you out there who bought your Oculuses and all those of you who have the Gear VR.
I have the PlayStation VR. So.
Yeah, and
is
the
it
PlayStation,
Oculuses or Oculi? Let's clarify
it might
that.
be Oculi,
Okay,
whatever it
just
is.
curious.
Those are not a future forward format. There's no way that that's going to be the future forward format as far as wearing something big on your head for extended periods of time. It just doesn't make any sense moving forward. And that's not to knock them. They're all really good, and I appreciate them for what they are, but they're not the option moving forward. So the question is, what's it going to be? And I challenge whoever's out there in our viewing audience, if you figure this out, you are going to make billions of dollars. Not millions, billions of dollars. So figure that out.
I think virtual reality is going to almost become just the new storytelling. Like, it's going to take over the movies and like video gaming pretty easily. It's really like fun and interesting to see when you do it. But I think the real big change that needs to happen is augmented reality.
Yeah.
Something that can improve daily life without being too much of it's just like closed off.
Yep. Like we see with the Microsoft, what's the Microsoft one called?
The HoloLens?
The HoloLens, yes, thank you. So like the Microsoft HoloLens, I will argue with you. I don't think that movies are going away anytime soon. I don't think VR is going to replace movies because of just the way the viewing experience works and the way storytelling works.
Yeah, we forget all about the narrative when we talk about
Exactly.
this conversation.
I think there's a place for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that, but I don't think that movies are going to be VR's final delivery for gaming. Absolutely not.
Nikon
Good.
is
Lower the volume.
coming out
Here we go.
with Key Mission 360. Well, there's three cameras. There's the 80, the 170,
And the 360.
And the 360. Two of them are more action cams, right, which we're familiar with GoPro and others.
And one's like an audiographer type.
And one is an audiographer. What the hell is that?
That's kind of like, just kind of pick it up, take a quick clip.
Okay.
That's the 80.
That's the 80. Yeah,
Yeah.
the lowest. And
Autographer, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there is the Key Mission 360. And
Levi, breathe deeply before you go off.
So here we go. I'm gonna start with the positives first. Okay. They made a 360 GoPro camera. Good market, great idea, great concept. They brought out a lot of accessories for it. All great ideas. They made it super simple. There's 2 buttons on the entire camera, right? All sounds brilliant. Quality, not great. Shoots in 4K, yeah. Not great quality. The stitch is not great. Okay, let's say they fix that. Dear Nikon, fix your app. That's only the start of it. They did a quarter 20 on the bottom, which you would think is really smart because it opens it up to a bajillion accessories. Quarter 20 loosens. You don't want an action camera to loosen. I almost lost it mountain biking. It overheated mountain biking in like 80 degrees of weather.
It overheated your bike. That's even
Yeah,
worse.
that was like crazy. So the handlebars are too hot. I just have like I was doing a test for us. We were going to do a review and pretty much after 2 weeks of playing with this camera, find another option.
What is another option?
Well, there are a lot of. I mean, okay, good point. Maybe not better options, but there are a ton of action cameras now. I mean,
Yeah,
and most of
GoPro
them-
Hero 5.
Yeah, GoPro takes obviously the top of the list, but there are secondary ones that are coming out left and right that seem to be.
Sony has
Sony
scopes.
some good
I
ones,
have
yeah.
I have one of the Sony ones. It's really nice.
right.
Like, image quality pretty much on par with GoPro, and now the new one has actual optical image stabilization.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I read some good stuff.
Just a
Garmin.
question
I mean,
for
there's
you.
a whole-
Garmin,
there's a-
Olympus.
Olympus is-
when
yeah,
it comes to the action camera market,
and
it's
a bunch
really
of no-name. What, Yi? What is Yi?
Yi from China. I mean, when it comes to that area, pretty much GoPro seems to have the market solid. Yes, their Karma's falling out of the sky, and they have a huge recall. But in the action camera market, they've created the market. They have it. I've spoken to our buyer. It's like not even a question that they sell. 360 is more interesting because you have things like the Theta. You have a bunch of other options. Kodak has a really interesting option.
Which is if somebody was
Samsung.
looking for one of these cameras, an action cam, a waterproof one, the one that could take a little bit of abuse, what would be the one you'd be looking at?
Samsung, Kodak, and Nikon are the ones that come to mind.
Okay.
Are you talking about
360?
tough cameras or are you talking about
I'm
action
not talking
cameras?
about action
Action
cameras, but that because not all of them
All right, I
are
think-
weather resistant and shock
I
proof.
think we need to
Yeah.
separate action and 360 right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about
yeah,
Action
yeah.
360. We're talking about Action 360. That's the way I heard it.
Okay.
So that would be Samsung, Kodak. Kodak has a 2-camera solution, which you have
Right.
to stitch and post. Frustrating. It's like $800 also. And then the Nikon, they did so many things right, or in theory they did right, that's what's kind of frustrating. The biggest frustration is that it's such a simple camera to get started with, but you need the app in order to do anything with the camera, and the app is,
Problematic.
to say the least.
Okay. We can leave it there. But it's the first time, their first go around. And probably
They should know better.
We all understand this is. there'll be
However,
more-
it's a
there'll be
very
more.
ambitious undertaking that
It's great. I like where they went. Exactly.
Let's jump really quickly. I think we've touched on all the kind of cameras that we can. If there's any story about lenses this year, what would it be? Sigma's still doing their art stuff?
Sigma's
art
still doing
lenses.
art.
Anything?
Well, Zeiss is getting. I mean, they redid the Milvis
Yeah.
lineup, which is really it was
Maybe
a
that's
cosmetic upgrade of an existing line, and they're great lenses.
Yeah, they did a good update there.
Sony's GM.
Sony's Grandmasters, which
And,
the 7200 is finally starting to ship.
They made a few more 50s.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
It's like there's 4 or 5 50 millimeters. in the
Voigtlander
Sony
just
E-mount.
came out with a real retro 50 millimeter 3.5 that looks like a little Buck Rogers rocket ship. It's going to be coming out in a few months. They announced that. It's just a great looking lens.
Off the top of my head, what we're seeing is a lot of reinforcing and like widening of lines. We're seeing Sony went to wide aperture, like in kind of like the standard stuff, 2470 2.8, 7200 2.8, Grandmaster 85 1.4. Like, so they kind of solidified E-mount as like a real
Right.
shooters lineup. Canon updated their 16 to 35. That was a nice update. They have the version 3 now, which is beautiful.
Is there any truth that with the improvements in image stabilization, VR, that we're going to see less of a need to drop down to super wide apertures, or is that
Depends why
Yes
you're
and
using
no.
it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why they push it so hard, because it makes it possible to build lenses that are lighter, smaller, and less expensive.
Yep.
However, as great as they are, and yes, you could handhold an f3.5, 5.6 lens at ridiculously long speeds. They won't take the same photograph that an f2 lens or a 1.4 would do, because with using a maximum aperture, there are certain effects you just cannot get.
Well, think
without
of
apps.
the reason why everyone always wants to shoot full frame. Everyone wants to shoot full frame for low light and bokeh.
Yeah.
And so if
yeah.
you go 3.5, you're not getting your bokeh.
Right.
Oh, here's one thing. Nikon's continuing their E-type updates.
Yep.
Okay,
So
that's
they
a good
have
one.
the
Yep.
new 7200 just came out, which is
Oh, really? Okay.
going to be
That's-
really nice.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they also came out with a 19 tilt shift, which
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, that's not out yet, is it?
no, it's not shipping yet.
Played with
Probably
it.
has
Played
some-
with it at their expo. Really nice. They had an expo here and beautiful lens.
Yeah, it definitely gives them something to compete with Canon 17, which has
Yeah.
always been the staple in that.
That's an
arena.
amazing. I've shot with that. That's an amazing lens for architecture, interiors, products, shots.
And portraits.
Yeah.
Which is underused in portraits, and great for those of you who are familiar with Gregory Heiser's work. A lot of other shooters out there.
tilt shifts.
All right, before we sign off here, let's all vote for our own personal favorite camera of the year. I think last year I really hesitated. I think I gave you 4 last year. I couldn't make up my mind. But I would say definitely the Hasselblad X1D-50C, because it's pretty exciting.
Ooh, this is a tough question. I feel like I'm almost betraying my shooting Canon for most of my career and then moving to Sony. But I gotta say the Nikon D500 really did a great job.
And that's okay. It's all right to say that.
It's okay.
I still have my A7R2 though.
Maybe.
I think I'm with Alan on this. I just love that Hasselblad came out with like a really good product in the X1D.
Thought you were going to say the iPhone. No.
No, I love it, but those. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still at my heart. I want to make big prints.
All right.
And John,
And
you?
me?
Yeah, what do you think?
I would say on paper the D500, but because I want to get a Fuji, I'm going to say the X Pro 2.
Nice. Yeah, good call.
Not the XT2.
Actually, what I would like is the next what is it? The XT
X100.
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 I think
Yeah,
what they're
that's
saying.
what I would like,
Yeah.
but it's not out yet, so I'll stick with the X Pro 2.
Nice. Who's actually going to get their camera of the year here?
I am, but probably in about 15 years when it comes down in price. I'm going to go to the used department. I'm going to find a good one for like, $600. I'm going to snag it.
I would
good.
consider getting the A6500.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually kind of turned me on too a little bit, and not being a Sony shooter, but
I had a 6000 a while back. It was my first mirrorless and
yeah,
amazing camera.
Yeah.
And then
remember that.
it would be a nice second body that I don't need.
Right.
So
Well, I can't switch away from Nikon just because of the
you should
system
get
I've
the
set up.
D500.
Well, I don't need that. That's the thing. So that's why I want to go with with the Fuji that I can, and maybe with the fixed lens, just something I can have. As a
What
second.
are you on?
right now?
Yeah, with Nikon.
D750.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know, a straight answer, I mean, the Hasselblad's great, but if I was to go out and to buy a camera today, one that I know that I could use, that I'd like to have, and I know is going to give me good results, would have to be a little Sony RX100, was it the Mark V, whatever the latest one. And that's another thing I think is amazing, that Sony has not only built upon that wonderful camera that they came out with, 4 or 5 years ago, but you could buy all of them still. They're offering them all at different price ranges, and they're all very, very good. And you can actually choose, all right, how much do I actually need? And even if you get the base one, you got an awesome camera.
Yeah.
But that, especially the 5, it has all of the things that I would like to have. It's got the little EVF. It's tiny. It takes awesome pictures. So without saying, money's no object, if money is an object and I wanted to buy a camera and my eyes are actually on one, that to me is the best all-around travel, real camera I can go for.
I love my Mark IV.
There you go.
Probably the best purchase I made in terms
Right?
of camera equipment.
took
It fits
all
in my shirt
around.
pocket. You can just walk around, throw it in your bag. If you're going out, it's not like another camera you have to carry.
Yep.
And when you look at the pictures, you don't feel compromised. You say, oh, if I only had a better camera, because the pictures are real good.
Exactly. It's a 1-inch sensor, great
Yup.
lens. I took it with me to Russia instead of taking like a bunch of other stuff. I was going with friends. I didn't want to bog them down, and
Yeah.
phenomenal photos.
Yep. No
Nice.
two ways about it. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Levi. Thank you, Shawn. And thank you to our listeners. And again, your thoughts and comments are real important. Leave a review on iTunes. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in today.